underground dance music.
Friday!
I'm gonna take you to a place.
Friday, Friday, Friday!
This is Betrayed.
That you never been before.
BBC Radio 1.
I feel the energy of the air.
Nice one. Thank you very much, Danny. It's Beach Rates here, BBC Radio 1. And I am currently standing outside of the legendary BBC Maida Vale studios here in London. And it's starting to look a lot like Christmas. It is very chilly outside, and we've had this kind of slushy snow coming down. Tonight, it's the Christmas special with a full 3 hours of Richie Hawtin, including an exclusive live session. So I'm going to head in, go down and meet Rich, have a little chat, and play you guys some music.
Got to do the do. 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 Got to do
Radio 1.
All right, we are well and truly into this Christmas special. That was Richie Hawtin, Plastic Man with Electrostatic. It's Beach Rates here, BBC Radio 1 on a Friday night. I'm down in Studio 4 of the world-famous Maida Vale, and I'm joined by the one and only Richie Hawtin. Hey, Richie.
How you doing?
How's that for an intro?
Wow, great.
So, thank you so much for making your way down here. I know it's been trains, planes, automobiles. We've got some serious slushy weather here in London. Where have you just come from?
Yeah, well, it's that time of year, right? Delays and the whole of the UK getting shut down by a couple of millimeters of snow. They never learn. It's the same thing every time. And then I was on the train, the Eurostar, this morning, and they're like, okay, we're going to be late because we have to slow the train down because of the snow. And I remember the last time I was on the bullet train in Japan, and I swear it sped up when there was, the ice allowed it to go faster. And I was like, you know you're going to have all types of weather. Why do you actually have to build something that can't function in everything that is normal here?
It's because they're just not used to it, you know? So,
I like going fast.
Yeah. No, on the Eurostar.
And I'm always late,
Europe.
so anything else that delates me, then I'm even more late.
Well, we're very fortunate to have you here with us at Maida Vale. So coming up on the show tonight, in hour 3, we're going to be running through some of your top tunes of the year. In hour 2, we are going to get to experience a 45-minute exclusive live set of your close performance. And I'm going to get geeky with you and find out what you kind of do in that whole performance. So I want you to walk me through the whole setup.
Yeah.
I've seen it in there already. It kind of looks like the inside of a spaceship.
Yeah, it looks really cool. And I will try to describe it and explain it to the best of my ability.
Excellent.
But it may pose more questions than answers.
All right, that's all right. And in this first hour, we're just going to be catching up, having a bit of a chat, playing some tunes. So let's play one of your current favorite tracks. Tell me what you've chosen and why.
I'm playing all types of music, I guess all techno, but slower, trippy, energetic. And the first track is Albert Silver, Koppelstück, the Avox 25 remix. And this is really, somehow it reminds me of the techno of the 90s, but being someone who doesn't like to go backwards and even play many old records, I like records that have an essence of the 90s or the 2000s, but still feel like it's from now and fresh, and even maybe from tomorrow, because that's, in my opinion, what techno is all about. So it's fast, it's got your 909 hi-hats, and it's got a lot of energy. Actually, the notes I wrote on the track, I wrote Faki, which reminds me of when I see Len Faki play, because he just is like this train roller, like just, hammering down this track.
Relentless.
And this track has that kind of energy and is perfect for destroying a dance floor.
Astronomy Domine with Piano there. Richie, why did you choose that one?
Well, I think it's a contrast to the first song we found or listened to, because this is much more hypnotic, still, techno and a little bit more muted and dubby, and that kind of track I just get lost in. You don't know where it begins or ends.
You're tuned into Beat Rates here on BBC Radio 1, our Christmas special with Richie Hawtin. So how was 2017 for you as a year?
Musically, I think it's really, really good. There's a lot of great techno.
A lot of techno right now. A lot of different styles as well.
Yeah, but not so. Of course, I don't like techno that is really aggressive. Even some of my old tracks, which are, I guess, hard, I found them or wanted them to be perceived as more intense,
tougher
than hard and fighting. And I find a lot of those records now. It's like great energy. They're somehow hypnotic. They lock you into a groove. They're forward thinking. It feels like perhaps the last couple of years you had a lot of young producers learning their chops, trying things in Ableton or Logic, then adding some equipment and maybe getting lost a little bit here and there. But maybe things are coming to fruition now and you're really starting to hear the true voice of this generation's techno producers.
What is that voice?
Techno is a music that is supposed to envelop the future. I think it's very hard to continue this music now that we have so much history. In the beginning it was easy. You just made anything and it was kind of new. You were still writing the definition of techno. But over the last 27 years, 30 years, more of those words have been described, more of those frequencies, more of those drum patterns. There's posters now of African Bangladesh drum programming and this and that. So there's so much knowledge out there. How do you break apart from that, still become part of what techno is, still look forward, and still retain the spirit of the past? I think it's very, very difficult. I'm probably more anal than anyone about this just because I have all this, all these records in my mind and all these frequencies. And I want to be the kid sitting and hearing those first Detroit records for the first time, or turning Jeff Mills' radio show on, or going to Derek May's house and hearing some bubbling music in the background that sounded like it was from tomorrow. And how do you make tomorrow's music sound like tomorrow still? I think it's really hard.
That's a very interesting way of putting it. becoming one of the key pioneers in the whole Detroit techno movement. What were some of the tracks that you were hearing as that was starting to kick off for you?
That's very interesting, because at that time, radio was super important in the late 80s in Detroit. Hip-hop hadn't hit really hard yet, so most of the urban stations had a techno or house program. You know, there was one program called the Midday Cuisine Mix, which was basically for lunch hour every day, which played, you know, Chicago acid house and New York soulful house and a little bit of techno in between.
For lunch.
For lunch.
Like 12 noon.
And then you had Jeff Mills playing later, and Derek, but the soundtrack was a mix of early hip-hop and everything that was going. You hit a Public Enemy track, and then you would hear a new Derek May track, or again an acid track, and then an It's a Reb track, and then new romantic tracks. It was really all mixed together, and the same thing happened when you went out clubbing at night. You would hear all this dance music mixed together, and it was really a lot of contrast and a lot of storytelling. It was all alternative. That was probably the main thing, because at that point, at least where I was growing up, you were either listening to the radio or rock music, and if you didn't like that, you're a weirdo or a fag or a scary or something like that, and all those people kind of gravitated to one corner of the room or one corner of the nightclub, and everything else that wasn't commercial or normal was kind of just mixed together, and that was really, really amazing. As you asked me that, it reminded me like a flash of this club called Todd's in Detroit. We used to always go there. I think we were underage, and Divine comes straight to mind. Ministry too, because Ministry was when I used to walk off the dance floor because it was a little bit too hard for me. Like Every Day is Halloween I liked, but then it got, into Stigmata and all this, and it was too rocky. And it was actually a point where in the late 80s, alternative and industrial kind of split. Some of it went more alternative, and they started to focus more on guitars, and some of the bands started to focus more on synths. And
right, the great divide.
I followed that way. And actually, when I'm thinking about it, a lot of the industrials more so went to the guitars, and I think maybe that was kind of the end of that era for me, because that's really when I started going to deep into pure Detroit techno and Chicago, and the vocals started to disappear and the future started to emerge.
Wow. Right, do you want to pick us a few tracks that influenced you at that time?
Yeah, let's talk about the mid-80s first before going into techno. And there was an incredible Canadian group called Psyche. They were from Hamilton, Ontario, so just up the street. And I was just listening to their tracks and their records. They were independent. It was really hard to find. And later I realized that all the drum machines were like 707 and Roland things, and actually were all the sounds that later I started to really prefer in the records that I would make. So I think my ears were focusing on sounds, even though I wasn't even thinking about making music at that point. There was a certain frequency band that just grabbed me. They had a song, Unveiling the Secret, which is, there's still vocals in there, there's some melodies, but you hear the Roland drum machines, and and then I met them, and somehow that was, okay, these kids from Canada doing music, and something about them made a mark on me. There was a lot of bedroom hours listening to this album.
Rhythm is Rhythm, Chaos, Jack Tracks, Derek May.
Yeah, complete chaos. Compared to the music I was listening to in the 80s, that is everything reduced and stripped down, and everything that I loved about Derek and Detroit techno. It's just a clattering of hi-hats and flanges and a stark bass line, and there's not really a melody. The melody is in the percussion, in the rhythm, and I think that really became part of my sound in the earlier track Electrostatic that we heard, in Spastic and all Plastic Man stuff. I can't write melodies. I can't play a keyboard. I can use sequencers and things like that, but I think everything that comes out within my tracks and even in my shows and in Close is somehow much more based on rhythm and syncopation than notes and music.
Over the years, you've run just a few labels. Plus 8, which recently just turned 25. Congratulations.
I guess so. Remember, I'm only looking forward. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, that was back then. And Minus, of course. Let's chat about those.
Yeah, actually, it's at this moment, the labels aren't actually that active compared to what they used to be.
Yeah.
It kind of goes in waves, and I follow how I feel about music that's coming to me in demos and what else I'm working on. And at the moment, Close has been taking tons of my attention, and any free time I'm in the studio working on that. For tracks and things, when we were talking about what I could play from the labels, I thought also about playing something from the past and something from right now. For the past, again, thinking about rediscovering music, and especially acid house right now. You hear a lot of 303.
Yeah.
So I thought I would play a track from my early days, Fuse Substance Abuse. I remember being in the basement of my parents' house working on that track, and it was a 6-month period where everything started to fit together. I had been making tracks for a couple of years on Plus 8, and it was me trying to sound like Derek May and maybe Kevin Saunderson, and like you do in the beginning. You hear a record, you try to remake it. And something in late 90, early 91, I had the 303 and things started to click together, and I started to think, okay, this sounds, I can hear the influences, but it's starting to sound like me.
Right.
And Substance Abuse was one of those moments where I was like, okay, this is good. Actually, we've only released 2 records this year on Minus. A John Geyser album and Jorn's new 12-inch. When I first met Jorn, I could tell he was influenced by Minus, and maybe he was still, like in my early days, looking for where your influence and inspiration leads you into somewhere else, into your own territory. And this new EP by Jorn, especially this track, Edge, it really, he's got that minimalistic, stripped down approach of Minus, but nearly the energy and the techno of +8. And it's very loopy and hypnotic, and it was supposed to come out like 6 months ago. Got a little bit delayed, mostly because of me, but that allowed me to have this secret weapon for about 8 months, and it's been destroying dance floors. Just amazing.
Do you think that's quite nice in the way that you maybe hold something back and then you're kind of the only DJ that has it to play it for people?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that was something that was really popular years ago, and now we can't really do that as much anymore because of the internet and everything being so instant.
Yeah, it is something like part of that secret, we used to call it Secret Squirrel Records. Like,
Secret Squirrel?
Secret Squirrel, yeah.
Why?
Yeah, I don't know. But part of me likes that you don't have so many of those, because it's more democratic that people can get the music, and then it's up to you how you play the music.
Right.
And it's not just, oh, you've got the one record that everybody wants and that's making you the best DJ. But what you do find now is, I know a lot of people who actually have record labels, not only to support new artists, but also to be mining all those demos to also have some of those secret squirrels. So
I remember speaking to Dixon about this, where like most of his set is records that you'll only hear him play, which is maybe a lot of the draw to why his audience sees him again and again and again.
Yeah, you've got to keep reinventing your sets and how you play and the music you play, and have people excited and anticipated to come back. What I choose to do, I don't play really many records by themselves anymore. You know, I really play now like my old Dex FX albums, and part of that is that I want to combine records in a way that people who come will hear their favorite record in a way that they'll never hear again. And I hope I can do that every night. It's what Close is all about. You know, I know it drives some of my fans bananas, because like, hey, just play the record. But anybody can play the record. Anybody can download it or turn on Spotify or iTunes. You know, music's out there now, and that's wonderful. And it's up to me, and what drives me really on is to like, how can I play things?
Present it.
Yeah. Well, just present it, mix it, edit it, like, you know, turn it inside out. There was moments on, you know, Back to Chaos and Derek May. Even the first time I heard Chaos, it was just to turn my head inside out. I was like, what the hell is this record? Like, it's all over the place. There's some parts probably too loud and this and that, but it's got dynamics, it's got contrast. And that record is like how I want to hear a DJ play, how I want to play, how I used to hear when I was going out like weekly onto the dance floor, how I used to hear Derek and Kevin and Jeff play, like just slamming records in and playing with the EQ, and they didn't care if they screwed up, whatever.
There's a little offbeat there.
You just go with it, and at your best you're not thinking, and you just see what happens spontaneously. That's the magic that I want to create, or that's the magic that I want to experience if I'm on the dance floor.
I think that's really nice, because I feel like that's something that we're missing a lot of right now. I mean, there's this flawless sort of way of presenting a DJ set that is, everything is so perfectly beat matched, and everyone's very careful. And
yeah, actually, you're right. Like on one level, it's very perfect because some people are playing with computers or syncing, and then other people who are, whether they're on CDJs or vinyl, I think everyone's scared to make a mistake, because then all the trolls and everybody's going to come online and say, oh, this is bad, and judge you for that one instance or that one bad song, and whatever. There's just so many opinions.
yeah.
And sometimes the magic is the mistakes, you know, whether it's a technical mistake or just playing what you think is maybe the wrong record and then realizing it's actually it's good timing, or making it the right timing, and, you know, just going with it. I don't believe in planning sets. I don't know how you can plan a DJ set when you don't know which people are going to be on the dance floor or where you're going to be. Maybe if you're a resident, you play the same place at the same time, you know, but for me, it's like, okay, I've got you know, I go through my demos, I got my music, and usually figure some kind of starting out. That's what I'm going to do later, you know, go in and plan the first 2-3 records and then see where it takes us. And us being a very important word there, because for sure I'm in my own little world when I'm playing, but DJing is about a conversation between you and the audience, and there has to be, at its best, there's an incredible feedback loop.
Traits here, and you're tuned into the Christmas special 2017 with the legend Richie Hawtin right here at Maida Vale Studios. Coming up around 2 a.m., Richie is going to be giving us a 45-minute live set from his close performance. We'll be walking through his tech setup, and then a little bit later we're going to be running through some of his top tunes of 2017. So since this is the Christmas show, Richie, what does Christmas mean to you?
I left the UK when I was 9, so
yeah.
I think it was those UK, Banbury, Oxfordshire Christmases that really are set in my mind, because my mum has a huge collection of brothers and sisters, and at that moment they were all in the UK, and so it was dozens, felt like hundreds of people at my nan's house with a big meal and presents everywhere, and lots of food, and just family, you know, just a warm, you know, fuzzy, nice atmosphere. As kids, we always wanted to get up too early and open up things too soon.
Of course.
Before my parents got up, or before they were ready, or before my dad had a cup of tea. A lot of the presents were usually things that my dad wanted to play with, and he wanted to be there to open them. So whether it was like Action Men when we were kids, and not just the Jeep for the Action Man or the helicopter, but it was the helicopter, the Jeep, and the boat. So one for me, one for my brother, one for my dad.
Of course.
And then later it was, you know, keyboards and electronic kits, and then games and things for the computer. My dad and I have always shared a lot of the same hobbies and even music and influences. So Christmas time was a time for sharing all that.
Do you still get to go home for Christmas?
Yeah, actually, we're always together, except this year, you know, my brother's going to be in Canada, I'm going to be in Berlin, and my mom and dad are going to be in the UK. We're talking, well, as nobody can see, I'm looking at my friend in the corner, because he's in Oxford, and my mom and dad are going to be in that area, so we may fly over and cause some havoc.
All right, so do this every Christmas special. We got some Christmas crackers. Now, listen, Joseph Capriati last year for the Christmas special, he never really saw these before.
No, I know exactly.
But I'm sure that you know exactly what they are.
Yeah.
So, are you ready? I hold on to the thing.
I hold it here. Oh. Well, I didn't get much.
Oh, that's a bit.
What is that? Like a little pie cutter?
It's a cookie cutter here. I'm going to make you wear the crown.
Great. Well, I was just about to say, thank God it's a radio show, but there's a camera here too, so oh well.
I won't make you wear it during your performance. Don't worry.
Perfect.
Is there a joke in there? Yeah, there's a joke in there. You have to write it out.
What is the biggest ant?
The biggest ant?
Yeah.
It's obviously like a...
You guys get it? No. Huh?
Santa!
Well, hey, that's good. Santa, that is very good. You're on the right way. No, an elephant. It sounds exactly like a joke I would tell.
Oh, excellent. All right. Well, let's play some more music and keep this fun. Richie, what else have you got for us? What other tracks you brought in tonight?
Fun end of the night tracks, something like that.
Yeah, sure.
A little bit of humor, and also going back again. Old Chicago record by MD3, which was Mike Dunn, one of the real pioneers of the Chicago acid scene. So Mike Dunn, MD3, The Pressure Cooker.
Vous êtes avec Beatrace.
The pressure cooker.
After an incredible party and you've taken people on a journey and there's this warmth, then if it reminds me of a certain other party where I may have played a song in the early days, somehow it gets connected in my head, and then I try to bring that track back at that point. And this track has come back a serious amount of times. So The Pressure Cooker, it's weird, minimal, funny, and a great record to dance to.
Traits.
Link, Amenity. Why did you choose that one?
Well, completely different than the pressure cooker. I hope it wasn't a downer, because it's very, you know...
Nothing's a downer. This is a Christmas special.
I don't know if it's somber, but it's absolutely beautiful. And that was a track that, for pretty much all the parties that we did in Detroit, these parties called Jack and Hard and Spastic, whenever you knew you had reached that magical moment that you would... Most of those parties were like 6 or 8 hours, and it was most of the people you began with, you ended with. And it was really like kind of a thank you to everybody who had taken that incredible journey together. It was a Global Communications produced track.
Oh.
And it's so beautiful and dreamy, and then when it kicks in, it's like, you think the party's over, then it comes back one more time, and usually the lights come up or the sun's rising, and everybody leaves with the same spirit.
What about a bit of a curveball record, something that our listeners are not going to expect you to choose tonight?
I used to really like playing You Spin Me Around by Dead or Alive.
Amazing.
Yeah, that really
but in a
worked.
set.
Yeah. Actually, it was in the early Cocoon days on Ibiza. I used to play that at the height of the night, and people would absolutely go ballistic. But this is actually maybe much uncooler than that, especially because the way I would play this track, I usually overlay it with something, and now we're going to hear it by itself. But the vocals in this track, somehow it connects to me and the whole nightlife scene. So Laura Branigan, Self-Control, something that I think probably every person who's part of this crazy scene, especially the artists and the DJs and traveling,